Chapter 271, 179, The Fox-Eared Girl Who Dominates the Field. The fox-eared girl appeared very suddenly. When she appeared out of thin air in front of the vehicle, many people on the bus were startled for a moment, thinking their eyes were playing tricks on them. "Instructor, there's someone ahead." Seeing that the speed of the vehicle had not slowed down at all, Shang Guanyueying, who was sitting behind the driver's seat, loudly reminded him. However, Lu Tianrong not only did not brake, but instead accelerated and charged forward. In these wild and desolate hills, a beast-eared girl suddenly appeared to block the road, which was clearly a sign of malevolence. Stopping would simply be asking for trouble. Perhaps even seeking death. Buzz. Accompanied by a prolonged whooshing sound. The military bus carrying 21 people, moving at a speed of over 100 km per hour, crashed directly towards the fox-eared girl blocking the way. At that moment, everyone on the bus thought the fox-eared girl was going to be hit and sent flying. Or that the fox-eared girl had an extremely strong body and would bring the massive military bus to a halt. But the moment the bus hit the fox-eared girl, an extremely eerie scene occurred. The sturdy military bus actually passed directly through the body of the fox-eared girl. It passed through as smoothly as if it had passed through air. Everyone on the bus was dumbfounded at first, unable to comprehend what they had just seen. A moment later, as they came to their senses, the crowd began to express their doubts one after another, discussing the matter amongst themselves. Was there not a fox-eared girl just now? There was, I saw her too. The bus clearly hit her, so why didn't it hit that fox-eared girl? An illusion. If one person sees it, that might be an illusion, but just now we all saw her, it can't possibly be an illusion. Could it be a mirage? But the conditions for a mirage aren't present here. Everyone was puzzled and full of doubt regarding the mysterious scene they had just witnessed. Lin Zikan remained silent, frowning slightly, his eyes constantly scanning the outside of the vehicle. He opened all his senses to their maximum, trying to find any trace of the fox-eared girl. The moment the fox-eared girl appeared, he had spread his spiritual power to sense her immediately, trying to glimpse her biological level. To his surprise, he discovered that she bore no trace of biological pressure at all. Not only that, she even lacked the breath of life, like an inanimate object. This was too illogical. Lin Zikan felt uneasy about this. Shen Qinghan sitting nearby, felt equally uneasy. She held Lin Zikan's hand and asked with a worried expression, "Xiao Chen, what just happened?" Lin Zikan shook his head, "I'm not sure." After speaking, he turned to ask Lu Tianrong, who was in the driver's seat, "Instructor Lu, do you know what just happened?" Lu Tianrong, having a higher biological level and living longer, might be able to make some sense of it. However, even Lu Tianrong was unclear about what had just happened. Faced with Lin Zikan's puzzlement, he could only answer, "I'm not sure about the specifics of what just happened either. The only thing I can be sure of is that the moment the bus hit her, the moment I was closest to that fox-eared girl, I couldn't sense any sign of life from her at all." Hearing Lu Tianrong say this, several people in the vehicle changed their expressions slightly. Among them, Shang Guanyueying looked scared and said, "You guys don't think it was that, do you?" "What that?" "She means to say that the fox-eared girl we just saw might be a ghost," Ma Ziwei said calmly. "In this supernatural world, even though there are exotic beasts, genetic integrators, mechanically modified humans, and the like, the concept of ghosts still exists in many people's hearts. Many people, upon hearing about ghosts, instinctively feel scared. Even if they themselves are powerful genetic integrators or powerful mechanically modified humans, they are still afraid. This is because so many stories about ghosts are so horrifying that they are frightening to hear. Only those who frequently watch horror movies or those who have seen a lot of bloodshed are likely to be completely unafraid. You must be joking, in this day and age, we even have mechs, and you're still talking about ghosts." Zhang Kai said with a look of disdain, your supposed intellectuals from the university don't even have the social awareness of someone like me who didn't even finish high school. Shang Guanyueying frowned and said, just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. There are many things in this world that science cannot explain. It's better to believe it and not need it than to need it and not believe it. Zhang Kai was speechless. Your university education must have been secured through connections and back doors. You. Shang Guanyueying was so angered her chest heaved with frustration. Lin Zikan listened to their argument and noticed that Zhang Kai had changed a lot, no longer acting like a sycophantic follower. Back in junior high, Zhang Kai had been very eager in his courtship of the school belle. Now there was no trace of that sycophantic demeanor. Most likely, having become a mechanically modified human, his social status had risen along with his tides, with plenty of women throwing themselves at him. The ones who fawned over him now licked his boots, turning him into the master instead of the follower. After pondering over these matters for a while, Lin Zikan quickly brought his thoughts back to the present and continued to scan the surroundings outside the vehicle. The rest of the people on the bus did the same, uneasily scanning the outside for any sign of the fox-eared girl. Except for Zhang Kai and Shang Guanyueying. The two were thoroughly embroiled in an argument. They clung to the topic of whether ghosts existed, constantly disputing, each trying to convince the other. They had completely cast aside the incident of the sudden appearance of the fox-eared girl. After all, the fox-eared girl had appeared for only a brief instant before disappearing. After a while, the event didn't seem as significant. During this time, Zhang Kai and Shang Guanyueying pulled in several others to take a stand on whether ghosts existed. The vast majority believed they did not. A few remained neutral. Chapter 272, 179, The Fox-Ear Girl Who Dominates the Field _2. Some people felt they did. Seeing most people believe there are no ghosts, Zhang Kai said smugly, we go with the majority, everyone thinks there are no ghosts in the world. Little Sakura, just admit that you're superstitious. Shang Guanyueying was infuriated. Just as she was about to say something to refute Zhang Kai. At the very back of the car, someone's squeaky voice spoke up in her defense, this sister is right, there really are ghosts in the world. Hearing this unfamiliar voice, everyone instinctively turned their heads towards the sound. They then discovered to their horror that the fox-eared girl who had suddenly appeared in front of the car was now on the bus. At this moment, the fox-eared girl was sitting alone in the back row, with one leg over the other, resting her chin in her hand, and smiling at the people inside the bus. Lin Zikan looked at the fox-eared girl, his heart filled with fear. How did she appear inside the car? And how had he not noticed her presence the whole time she had been on the bus? Even more, how had Liu Tianrong, whose biological level was as high as 6th order, also failed to detect her? The biological level of this fox-eared girl must far exceed 6th order. Thinking this, Lin Zikan became filled with unease. On the other side, seeing the fox-eared girl in the bus through the rear-view mirror, Liu Tianrong's heart skipped a beat, but then he quickly calmed down and slowly brought the car to a stop by the roadside. Then, he immediately got up from the driver's seat, turned around with a sharp gaze, and stared at the fox-eared girl in the back row, demanding, "Who exactly are you?" As he said this, he was ready to make a move at any moment. He didn't strike immediately because the fox-eared girl was too strange, and her strength was hard to gauge, making any attack highly risky. Instead of fighting immediately, it was better to communicate first and see what her intentions were. If things could be resolved peacefully, then all the better. Facing Liu Tianrong's questioning, the fox-eared girl smiled charmingly, "I'm not a human." Not human? Could it be that this fox-eared girl really was a ghost? There really are ghosts in the world. Everyone felt a chill run down their spine. Continuing, the fox-eared girl said, "However, you are not human either. Just now, you had the heart to drive such a large car towards a young girl, that's so inhuman." At that moment, her eyes suddenly lit up with a strange purple glow. Right after that, Lu Tianrong, upon whom her gaze fell, instantly became vacant, looking like an elderly man with dementia, standing there bewildered and motionless. He had been mentally controlled. Without the fox-eared girl's instructions, he would simply stand there foolishly without moving. Get out of the car! The fox-eared girl gave this command to Lu Tianrong. The next second, Lu Tianrong obediently walked towards the car door and under everyone's amazed gaze, left the bus. Having witnessed this scene, those remaining on the bus nearly all showed looks of despair. Even the instructor was dealt with so easily. This was the end. Everyone thought the fox-eared girl was from the divine plant cult, here to persecute them. Each and every one of them looked ashen-faced as if foreseeing their own tragic futures. Just as everyone thought this, the fox-eared girl said, "Except for Lin Zikan, all others get off the bus, I'm not interested in you." Hey? She's letting us go just like that? Everyone thought they had heard wrong and were incredulous. After a moment's reaction, they hastily scrambled off the bus, fearful that the fox-eared girl would change her mind. Aside from Lin Zikan, a total of 13 people left, while 6 chose to stay. The 5 who stayed were Shen Qinghan, Li Moyu, Ma Ziwei, Luo Yongjian from the same school, Zhang Kai from the Mech God group, and Zhao Yuanzhong from the military district. These individuals couldn't bring themselves to abandon Lin Zikan. At this, Lin Zikan said indifferently, "She's targeting me, you all should leave." To him, those who remained were a burden, and the wise choice was for them to leave. Take care. After speaking, Zhao Yuanzhong turned and left. Having had the chance to leave but choosing to stay had already shown his stance. Once the stance was clear, it was time to go. Zhang Kai did the same and left. Li Moyu, Luo Yongjian, and Ma Ziwei hesitated for a moment. After thinking it over and realizing that staying wouldn't help Lin Zikan, they too left the bus. In a blink, only Shen Qinghan remained. She clung to Lin Zikan's hand, unwilling to part with him. The fox-eared girl glanced at their tightly joined hands and then looked up at Shen Qinghan with displeasure. "Why are you holding the hand of my bed slave, little sister?" She had already claimed Lin Zikan as her possession, for her to play with and enjoy, not to be touched by anyone else. Shen Qinghan stayed silent, gripping his hand tighter. For a fleeting moment, she considered lashing out at the fox-eared girl before her, to control her chi blood. Luckily, reason overcame impulse, and she chose not to act. The fox-eared girl, who could easily deal with an instructor of the 6th order. And herself, just an ordinary being of 6th order, should she provoke the fox-eared girl, the consequences would be unimaginable. Shen Qinghan was very clear about this fact. Lin Zikan, concerned that Shen Qinghan staying might put her in danger, released her hand and said, "Han Han, get off the bus." "But... listen to me, get off." Shen Qinghan didn't move, pursing her lips in silence. Previously, when Lin Zikan took a risk with his own life to lead the masked man away, she was so worried she wanted to cry, filled with regret. Now, having just reunited with Lin Zikan, she didn't want to be separated from him again. Chapter 273, 179, The Fox-Ear Girl Who Dominates the Field _3. Fear gripped her that this separation might not be as fortunate as before, that she might not be able to reunite with Lin Zikan. Seeing Shen Qinghan refusing to get out of the car, Lin Zikan furrowed his brow. Just as he was about to forcibly push his childhood sweetheart, who had lost all reason and was driven more by emotion than logic, out of the car to get her out of danger. The vixen-eared girl in front of them made the first move against Shen Qinghan. With just a thought, she levitated Shen Qinghan into the air, and then with a fierce swing, sent her crashing through the car window to the outside. The impact was enormous at the moment of collision. The car window's glass shattered with a loud bang, scattering fragments everywhere. The entire car shook as a result. Lin Zikan felt the intensity of the impact vividly and immediately looked out the window at Shen Qinghan with a look full of concern. Seeing that Shen Qinghan was only slightly cut by the broken glass and unharmed, he breathed a sigh of relief. Outside the car, Shen Qinghan got up from the ground. Tears filled her eyes. She wanted to get back in the car and be with Lin Zikan. But after calming down and thinking it over, she realized that doing so would only make matters uncontrollable and would bring no benefits. So, she stood outside the car, watching Lin Zikan with eyes red from crying, praying in her heart that he wouldn't come to any harm. King Han, don't stand so close. Ma Ziwei came over and pulled Shen Qinghan away from the car. The vixen-eared girl in the car didn't seem bloodthirsty. But as the saying goes, better safe than sorry. No one could guarantee that the vixen-eared girl wouldn't find Shen Qinghan annoying and decide to eliminate her on a whim. Ma Ziwei pulled Shen Qinghan aside and said rationally, "We can't do anything right now. The only thing we can do is not to provoke the enemy and wait quietly for reinforcements to arrive." I know all that, but I just can't." Shen Qinghan's voice was tearful. As she spoke, she kept a worried eye on the situation inside the car, fearing that Lin Zikan would disappear from her sight the next second. At this moment, Luo Yongjian, who also had not left the scene, walked up with a look of confusion and said, "It's been so long since the incident, why hasn't the military's rescue arrived? Most likely there is treachery afoot within the military." Li Moyu came up to analyze. Our outing for live combat training was secret, yet the divine plant cult managed to plan ahead. I don't believe there are no traitors in the military. Even among the trainees, there might be traitors. So forget about waiting for rescue. It certainly won't arrive soon. The traitors in the military will find ways to cause delays. As for calling for help elsewhere, forget that too. I have tried it. The signals here are blocked, we can't contact the outside world. The only hope we have now is Principal Yuan, who is far away and caught in a fierce battle. We have to rely on her to defeat her opponent and then come to our rescue." Listening to Li Moyu's analysis, both Ma Ziwei and Luo Yongjian fell into silence. Shen Qinghan didn't fall silent, she clasped her hands and prayed softly, "Master must win, Master must win, Master must win." Master? The three people around her didn't know about the relationship between Shen Qinghan and Yuan Dongji. Hearing her call out Master over and over, it felt as though they had stumbled upon a significant secret. Excluding Lin Zikan, only 4 of them were still at the scene and had not left. The trainees from places like Jing University, Mech God Group, and the military sector had quickly left the scene as soon as they got out of the car, running faster than anyone else. Fearing that the vixen-eared girl would change her mind and not spare them. P.S. Begging bowl out, votes for monthly and recommendation tickets. Chapter 274, 180. Fierce battle with the fox demon. Collisions of flesh and spirit. In the car, Lin Zikan was alone, facing the fox-eared girl, with a grave expression on his face. He used danger perception to peek at her biological level, only to find it was ordinary 9th order. With such strange methods, could this be an ordinary creature? This completely defies logic. It also contradicts biology. So was she disguising her biological level? The more Lin Zikan thought about it, the more uneasy he felt. Uncertainty is always unsettling. If he knew the true strength of the fox-eared girl, even if her biological level were as high as rare level, he wouldn't feel so uneasy. One thing he was worried about right now. The fox-eared girl in front of him was stronger than Yuan Dongji. If that were true, today might be more dangerous than auspicious. Little betting slave, now it's just the 2 of us left in the car. The fox-eared girl got up from her seat and walked toward Lin Zikan at a leisurely pace, smiling seductively as she moved. She was wearing a purple silk gown, revealing a pair of small, bare, grasping jade feet. As she walked, her loose sleeves fluttered. Her footsteps were light and smooth. She looked like a purple butterfly dancing gracefully, pleasing to the eye, extremely beautiful. Seeing the girl walking barefoot, Lin Zikan felt puzzled. Wasn't she afraid to dirty her feet? Just as he thought this, the next moment, he was surprised to find that the fox-eared girl was floating in the air. Looking closely, one could see her bare jade feet were actually a small distance from the ground. About half a centimeter or so. If one didn't look carefully, it would be hard to notice. Linziken frowned slightly at this, his expression becoming even more solemn. The fox-eared girl in front of him wasn't wearing shoes. And yet her feet were still clean and white, without a speck of dust. What did this imply? It means she had been floating all along, never touching the ground for a second. To maintain such constant levitation, how strong must one's spiritual power be? Could Yuan Dongji's spiritual power be as strong as hers? Linziken's thoughts were in turmoil, and the more he thought, the more helpless he felt. The fox-eared girl in front of him was extremely powerful, so overpowering that it left him without the slightest thought of resistance. Soon, the fox-eared girl came up to Linziken, her voice soft. "Little betting slave, why keep frowning? I'm not going to eat you, relax a little." As he heard this sentence, Linziken could smell a faint floral scent. It was coming from the fox-eared girl. The scent was pleasant and intoxicating, making one unwittingly want to draw closer. This floral scent wasn't right, it seemed to have an aphrodisiac effect. Linziken snapped out of the sense effect, took a small step back, and asked as calmly as possible, "What do you mean by betting slave?" As he asked, he prepared himself to take action at any moment. If the fox-eared girl made any suspicious move, he wouldn't hesitate to strike. Although the chances of beating the fox-eared girl were slim, he had to try to know for sure. What if he could defeat her? What if she was just spiritually powerful but physically very weak? Anything was possible. After all, creatures that are extremely strong in spiritual power but very weak physically do exist. Many exotic beasts that specialize in spiritual power have this vulnerability. What I mean by betting slave is just as the words suggest, a slave on the bed, responsible for pleasuring me, for me to consume their spiritual energy. The fox-eared girl chuckled, and continued, "Your strong physical talent and handsome features both meet my requirements. Especially your physical talent to be able to single-handedly kill a higher 6th order being with an ordinary 9th order body is simply unbelievable. With such a formidable physical talent, the spiritual energy contained within must be very sweet and satisfying, qualifying you to be my betting slave." Consume spiritual energy? What is that? Linziken realized something was off and asked, "Are you a genetic integrator, an exotic beast, or maybe an exotic human?" Before this, he had assumed the fox-eared girl was a genetic integrator who had fused with fox exotic beast genes. Now, he realized he might have been wrong. She might actually not be human. Or at least not an earthling. She might be a transformed exotic beast, or one of the rumored exotic humans who live in the origin land. However, the fox-eared girl's reply was somewhat unexpected. She casually sat on an adjacent seat, lazily crossing her legs, while seductively tapping her delicate little jade feet and smiling enchantingly. "I'm neither a genetic integrator, nor an exotic beast, nor an exotic human. None of them." Linziken was a bit confused. If it's neither this nor that, then what is it? Could it be that she's a pure-blood human like himself? But the girl had animal ears and a tail, she certainly didn't seem like a pure-blood human. The fox-eared girl continued, "I'm half an earthling." Half an earthling? Linziken didn't quite understand what she meant. But soon, he thought of something and asked the fox-eared girl, "Are you from the origin land?" "Very clever, you guessed right," the fox-eared girl said with a smile. "Indeed, I come from the origin land, but rest assured, I'm not like the other creatures from there. I have never thought about invading Earth, nor do I bear any ill will towards Earthlings. Because I also have half Earthling blood flowing through me, I'm half an Earthling. To be precise, Earth is kind of like my second home." "Linziken, are you a human-animal hybrid?" The fox-eared girl corrected, not human animal, it's human fox, the fox of a fox demon. Beast is a general term for non-sentient creatures. My mother can speak human language, carried me for 10 months before giving birth, and is skilled in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Do you think she's a beast? Chapter 275, 180. Fierce battle with the fox demon. Collisions of flesh and spirit. _2. Having said that, the fox-eared girl sighed lightly. My mother is clearly so outstanding, yet that earthborn father of mine didn't cherish her at all. He took advantage of my mother's love for him, constantly schemed against her, deceived her for money and sex, and after impregnating her, he upped and left without a trace. As her daughter, I've grown this big without even having seen him once. It's also because my mother was foolishly infatuated, easily believed in the sweet nothings of a man. In my opinion, men are only fit to be bed slaves, to be collared and leashed around the neck by their masters. As she spoke, the fox-eared girl conjured a beast-skin collar out of thin air. Afterward, with enchanting eyes that captured the soul and a seductive smile on her lips, she asked, I've been so transparent with you, are you willing to wear this collar I've carefully prepared for you, and be my bed slave? Summoning objects out of nowhere? Seeing the fox-eared girl suddenly produce a beast-skin collar out of thin air, Linziken felt somewhat incredulous. Out of instinct, he glanced at the fox-eared girl's hands to check for any rings. There were no rings. 10 fingers, white as spring onions and as smooth as jade, all empty, without any adornments. It wasn't like the storage rings from internet novels in his previous life. Thinking this, Linziken asked, what if I refuse? The consequence of refusal. The fox-eared girl smiled charmingly, you have no reason to refuse. Nor the qualification to do so. Linziken fell silent and then said, give me some time to consider it then. He lacked confidence in winning against the fox-eared girl. His only option was to stall for time, waiting for the military to come to his support. And also, waiting for Yuan Dongji to defeat the 9th elder of the divine plant cult. Stalling for time. The fox-eared girl laughed, give it up, the military's people won't be able to get here. By the time they do, the daylilies will be cold. Otherwise, why do you think I'm willing to spend so much time talking with you? The fox-eared girl brushed her forehead hair, continuing, I prefer willing submission over forcing others. If you're willing to be my bed slave, I can assure you, the divine plant cult will no longer dare to target you. Even more, in the future, they will have to address you respectfully as my lord each time they see you. I really need to contemplate this. Linziken toughened his resolve and did not reply, trying his best to delay. The fox-eared girl stood up from her seat and positioned herself in front of Linziken again, speaking in a delicate voice. Take a good look at my face that could overthrow states and cities. Witness my graceful and enchanting figure. Do you know how many male creatures in the origin land lust after my body? Are you sure you don't want to be my bed slave? Linziken gazed at the fox-eared girl before him, taking in her features meticulously. Fuzzy fox ears on top of her head, hair strands falling on her shoulders soft and shiny. Her skin, fair and delicate, her nose, small and perky, her lips, cherry red and glistening, a rare delicacy. Her eyes, a pair of watery, peach-bloom eyes with long eyelashes and light purple pupils, held an inexplicable allure, as if they could capture one's soul, making it difficult for anyone to look away once their gaze landed on them. Under her right eye, a conspicuous mole added a touch of seductiveness to her appealing face, exuding a unique charm. As his gaze traveled downward, he saw an old-fashioned purple silk dress. The dress was loose, not form-fitting. Yet even so, it was visibly clear that the figure beneath the dress was shapely, with full and voluptuous curves. All things considered, the fox-eared girl's beauty and physique were not inferior to Shen King Han's. They represented two different types of beauty. Shen King Han was pure with a hint of playfulness, coupled with a bit of age-appropriate suggestiveness, not genuine lewdness, but a curiosity about the opposite sex that came with age, while at the same time her figure was growing more voluptuous, yet still retaining the full essence of youthful femininity. She was the pure and lovely girl next door. Whereas the fox-eared girl before him seemed to exude only one attribute: desire. Her face alluring, her body full and firm, her voice like dripping honey, she gave off an extremely indecent vibe, stirring lascivious fantasies, representing the sexy and statuesque woman next door. "Do you like what you see?" the fox-eared girl asked with a half-smile. Before Linziken could answer, she reached out a finger and gently pressed it to Linziken's lips, her voice tantalizingly persuasive. "Becoming my bed slave, you could enjoy my body every day and also reap unexpected benefits." "What kind of benefits?" "Once you become my bed slave, you will naturally find out in time," the fox-eared girl replied, and then asked, "So, do you want to be my bed slave?" Linziken showed hesitance. "Let me think about it." At that moment, he felt a bit stifled inside. If he were powerful enough, he wouldn't need to feign hesitation to stall for time, waiting for someone to come to his rescue. He'd be able to act against the fox-eared girl right away, punching her to the ground with one blow. Unfortunately, he was still too weak. He could only reign supreme within the school. Once outside, encountering a powerful and higher-level enemy, he could only nod and bow. Seeing that Linziken was still unwilling and trying to stall for time by saying he needed to think things over, the smile on the face of the fox-eared girl faded significantly, and she said with some displeasure, "I am clearly so charming. Why won't you agree?" "I understand, is it because of the little sister outside the car? If that's the case, then I'll kill her." As soon as she finished speaking, the fox-eared girl's figure suddenly vanished. By the time Linziken realized what was happening, she had already appeared behind Shen Qinghan like a phantom, swinging her snow-white fox tail to wrap around Shen Qinghan's neck. Bang! A collision sounded like an explosion. Linziken didn't bother with the door and chose to crash directly through the military bus's metal skin, shooting out of the bus like a bullet at the fastest speed towards the fox-eared girl. Before the fox-eared girl could tighten her tail to strangle Shen Qinghan's neck, he charged to the side of the fox-eared girl, carrying a tremendous blood chi power, and slammed his fist towards her head. Buzz! A long whizzing sound followed. Linziken's fist, which was so fast it looked like an afterimage, passed right through the fox-eared girl's head. It was just like earlier when Liu Tianrong had driven the military bus straight through the fox-eared girl. It didn't touch anything. It just felt like it passed through the air. Afterward, the fox-eared girl vanished, as if she had never existed. What's going on? Linziken couldn't make sense of the scene before his eyes. While he was puzzled, Shen Qinghan asked with a worried face, "Xiao Chen, what's wrong with you?" "What's wrong with me?" Linziken felt confused and said to Shen Qinghan, "I was just trying to save you." Shen Qinghan was equally puzzled, "Save me?" At this moment, Li Moyu said with confusion, "Zai Chen, what are you doing? Why suddenly rush out of the bus like a ghost and throw a punch at the air behind your Qinghan? Are you trying to kill your wife to prove your way or what? Rushing out of the bus for no apparent reason?" Linziken realized something. At this moment, a familiar voice sounded eerily from behind him. "You really don't hold back. My physical body is only at an ordinary 9th rank level, if your punch hit me, I'd probably be dead on the spot." It was the voice of the fox-eared girl. It came from inside the military bus behind him. Linziken turned around immediately. He then saw that the fox-eared girl had been in the bus all along and had never gotten out. Indeed, he hadn't hit a decoy just now. He had fallen for an illusion technique and saw illusions. Realizing this, Linziken's eyebrows furrowed tightly, and his expression turned exceedingly grave. He had never encountered such a tricky enemy. Just a little release of spiritual power was enough to toy with people at will. "I was just playing with you just now." The fox-eared girl walked out of the bus, her smile teasing, "Now, I'm really going to kill this pretty little thing you love." The moment her words fell, her figure blurred, and in an instant, she created dozens of identical clones, all rushing towards Shen Qinghan. This time, Lin Zikin didn't rush to make a move. He was very clear about one thing in his mind. If his spirit was not as strong as that of the fox-eared girl, then making a move would be futile. Because he couldn't tell if the target was real or fake. To win against the fox-eared girl, he had to increase his spiritual strength. The advanced spirit he had acquired before was now time to be put to use. He hoped it would work. Thinking this, Lin Zikin had a thought and activated the advanced spirit he had just remembered. The moment the advanced spirit took effect, he felt as if his whole head became instantly empty, an unprecedented tranquility taking over. Then, the numerous clones of the fox-eared girl began to vanish one after another. In the span of a mere 2 seconds, they disappeared without a trace. After that, within his field of view, he only saw one fox-eared girl sitting on top of the military bus, watching below with interest as several people panicked. He had found the real one. P.S. Begging for your monthly and recommendation tickets. Chapter 276, 181, Exploding Punch. Devouring the fox-eared girl. Under the blessing of advanced spirit, Lin Zikin finally saw the true form of the fox-eared girl. She was sitting on top of the military bus. Perhaps from the beginning, the fox-eared girl had always been on the roof and never left. It was just that everyone's spiritual power wasn't strong enough to detect her presence. Whether it was her sudden appearance in front of the bus, inside the bus, or the recent instant movement behind Shen Qinghan, they were all fake images. They were illusions created by the fox-eared girl. This fox demon from the origin land was extremely skilled at using illusion technique. Bang! Suddenly, there was an explosive sound of a foot stomping hard on the ground. That was Lin Zikin making his move. Having confirmed the real location of the fox-eared girl, he did not hesitate for a moment and immediately erupted with all of his qi blood, his calves forcefully pushing off the ground with might, creating a deep pit in the ground. Mud splattered all around. Using the strong propulsion generated from pushing off the ground, he instantly sprang in front of the fox-eared girl. He swung his fist, which was covered with the force of blood qi power. He didn't hold back at all. He fiercely threw a punch towards the fox-eared girl's head. He aimed for a one-hit kill. Against an enemy that meant harm to Shen Qinghan, there was no possibility of showing mercy, he had to be deadly. Just as his fist was about to strike, the fox-eared girl in front of him smiled. She smiled rather playfully. Seeing this, Lin Zikin's heart sank immediately. Why was she smiling? Could it be that she in front of him was another illusion? Caught in these thoughts, his fist violently slammed onto the fox-eared girl's forehead. Then, a buzz sounded. His fist went through her head, hitting nothing but air. Another illusion. Lin Zikin felt his heart plummet. Even with the aid of advanced spirit, he was still unable to deal with the fox-eared girl. This was troubling. Without a second thought, having missed his strike, Lin Zikin quickly retreated to Shen Qinghan's side with his senses wide open, surveilling the surroundings with vigilance. The fox-eared girl was intent on killing Shen Qinghan, and he needed to protect her well. Interesting, you managed to instantly enhance your own spiritual power and break through the illusion technique I pride myself on. You are becoming more and more surprising. The Shen Qinghan being protected at his side suddenly said in a tender and delicate voice. Lin Zikin turned his head abruptly upon hearing this. And then, to his horror, he realized that the Shen Qinghan he was protecting had somehow transformed into the fox-eared girl at some point. But the next second, with the enhancement of advanced spirit, the fox-eared girl in front of him turned back into the familiar Shen Qinghan. Lin Zikin couldn't tell the difference anymore. He felt that he was almost unable to distinguish between reality and illusion. The illusion technique of the fox-eared girl had a devastating effect on his sensory perception. Xiao Chen. The Shen King Han next to him noticed his distressed state and weakly called out to him. Like waking from a dream, Lin Zikin reached out to grab Shen King Han's hand. It was warm. It was tangible. The touch was soft and smooth, very familiar. He could confirm it was indeed Shen King Han herself. At that moment, Lin Zikin felt a wave of relief mixed with fear. The fox demon was extremely cunning, actually playing tricks like using someone else's hand to kill. Luckily, when the fox demon's tender voice rang by his ear, he didn't choose to attack. Otherwise, he would have been hitting Shen King Han. This wave of relief didn't last long and soon dissipated. It was replaced with a slight sigh of relief. After the recent clash with the fox-eared girl, Lin Zikin analyzed the current situation. Although the fox-eared girl's spiritual power was strong, it was not insurmountably so. With the blessing of advanced spirit, he could greatly reduce the time he was under her mental control. Take the last two encounters, for example. He had barely fallen into the illusion, and in the next moment, he was able to break free immediately. Another point from those encounters was that he deduced the fox demon's physical strength was not formidable. It truly seemed to be only at the level of an ordinary 9th rank. Otherwise, there was no reason to choose the more time-consuming and effortful option of using illusions rather than a direct attack. Having understood all this, Lin Zikin immediately picked up Shen King Han without another word and dashed wildly away. If the physical strength of the fox-eared girl was truly only that of an ordinary 9th rank, she would definitely be unable to catch up with his fleeing pace. However, the fox-eared girl proved to be much more troublesome than he had imagined. He had not run 100 meters while carrying Shen King Han when he suddenly realized the sky had darkened. In just a brief second, the sunny noon turned pitch black. And it was the ultimate darkness. So dark that he couldn't see his hands in front of him. Surrounded by this darkness, his sensory perception was greatly diminished. Especially his sight, which had become so weak that he could no longer see the path clearly and thus could not continue to sprint at high speed. Lin Zikin was forced to stop. He had to stand still, waiting for advanced spirit to take effect and dispel the illusions before his eyes. With the blessing of advanced spirit, his vision was slowly coming back, increasingly able to make out the things in front of him. But the entire world remained pitch black and had not returned to the bright sunlight it should have been. This time, the strength of the illusion technique was unprecedentedly high. Even with the assistance of advanced spirit, he could only slowly weaken the delusional effect, unable to break through the illusion directly. Ziai Chen, King Han, where are you? Chen bro, don't leave us behind. You too, stop shouting and be quiet, don't disturb Ziai Chen. From behind him came the voices of Li Moyu, Ma Ziwei, and Luo Yongjian. Among them, the two boys sounded panicked. While Ma Ziwei, a girl, kept her composure. Lin Zikin didn't respond to them, focusing on staying alert to his surroundings. The fox-eared girl's target was him and Shen King Han. As long as those three didn't act rashly, they wouldn't encounter any danger. Chapter 277, 181, One Punch Explosion. Devouring the fox-eared girl, _2. Xiao Chen, why did it suddenly get dark? I can't see anything. Shen King Han felt very uneasy, holding Lin Zikin tightly. While staying alert to his surroundings, Lin Zikin spoke in a soothing tone. Don't panic, it's not a big problem, I can solve it. Shen King Han obediently responded with a sound and didn't make any more noise to disturb Lin Zikin. At this moment, the delicate voice of the fox-eared girl came through the darkness. Oh, feeling confident, are we? Lin Zikin looked towards the source of the voice, but all he saw was endless darkness, he couldn't see anything. The voice of the fox-eared girl rang out again, you, my overconfident little bed slave, come, let's see how you're going to break through my illusion technique this time. As her voice fell, the pitch-black sky suddenly conjured a beautiful purple moon out of nowhere. The purple light it emitted scattered much of the darkness. Suddenly, the purple moon turned into an eye with pale purple pupils. It held traces of allurement. It was captivating. Linziken recognized that they were the eyes of the fox-eared girl. He was extremely shocked in his heart. The fox-eared girl's illusion technique was too strong, completely shattering his understanding of the use of spiritual power. Before this, his understanding of the use of spiritual power had been very limited. It was nothing more than moving objects through space, flying through the air, enhancing sensory perception, and so on. If one was more advanced, they could perform a spiritual shock, projecting their spiritual power to attack the target's spirit, causing the target to lose consciousness. However, such as the fox-eared girl, who could conjure an illusion with a thought, making the target fall into it without distinguishing reality, he was seeing for the first time. "Little bed slave, it's coming for you." The voice of the fox-eared girl echoed hauntingly. As the voice ended, the eye in the high sky shone a strange purple light. The next second, Linziken's mind felt a jolt. Heaven and earth seemed to invert. The things within his field of vision were visibly distorting at a rapid pace. Fishes grew wings and flew in the sky. Birds grew gills and swam in the water. Reptiles stood upright and remained motionless, like trees. Plants uprooted themselves and started running wildly, devouring the motionless animals around them. At the same time, a strange whispering sound gradually arose by his ears: red umbrellas, white handles. The sound kept echoing in the depths of his mind. It made one's consciousness unclear, their awareness blurry, and their sensory perception weakened continuously. It was like having consumed the hallucinogenic mushrooms of a region known for fresh air. Fortunately, this state did not last long. Under the blessing of advanced spirit, it only took a few seconds to return to normal. After he recovered, Linziken found that the darkness around him was no longer as dense as it had been at the beginning. His view became much clearer. He could see everything within 100 meters. Looking around, he saw Li Moyu and the others about tens of meters behind him. At that moment, they were all trapped in the illusion and couldn't escape, their expressions extremely painful. Linziken glanced at the three of them and quickly withdrew his gaze. He then turned his attention to Shen Qinghan, who was being held in his arms. He found that Shen Qinghan was also in pain, but her condition seemed a little better. Her eyebrows were slightly furrowed as if she was having a nightmare. "Hey!" The fox-eared girl walked out of the darkness, surprised, and said, "You can even withstand that? Are you sure your biological level is just ordinary 9th rank?" As she spoke, her delicate face filled with disbelief. She couldn't help but exclaim, "Earth, a place with such scarce evolutionary resources, could actually give birth to such an exceptional genius. If you were born in the origin land, having enjoyed the abundant evolutionary resources from a young age, it's hard to imagine how strong you would be now. Advanced intermediate rank? Advanced high rank? Or even rare level?" As she said this, her stunning face became tinged with excitement, her eyes filled with desire. "A genius of your caliber, it's a waste to stay on Earth. You should become my bed slave, exchange your vital essence for evolutionary resources, and evolve together. As my bed slave, although you would lose your freedom, correspondingly, you would gain a future beyond your imagination. Take this chance while I'm still willing to treat you with respect." Linziken did not respond. He remained on guard against the fox-eared girl in front of him while diverting some of his attention to the darkness around him. He keenly noticed that the darkness was dissipating faster and faster. Considering that the illusion technique that plunged the entire world into darkness seemed so extensive, it must require a tremendous amount of spiritual power to sustain. With that thought, he surmised that the reason the fox-eared girl was willing to talk so much now, rather than continue her assault, was most likely not because she was patient. Rather, her spiritual power was nearly exhausted, unable to support her continued use of the illusion technique. With this realization, Linziken immediately acted upon the thought, using Forest Lord, his biometric attributes, to effortlessly control several vines. Silently approaching the fox-eared girl from behind. The fox-eared girl, whether due to the excessive consumption of spiritual power or something else, seemed unaware of the vines that were stealthily creeping closer like venomous snakes. Seeing Linziken remain silent, her voice turned cold. I have been utterly sincere with you, but you've repeatedly refused. My patience has its limits. Linziken said indifferently, you can't even show your true self. Is that your sincerity? The fox-eared girl laughed. Little bed slave, is there a possibility that I am speaking to you in my true form right now? Linziken, whether there is a possibility, that's something we'll have to test to find out. Chapter 278, 181, One Punch Explosion. Devouring the fox-eared girl, _3. As his voice trailed off, his eyes focused intently as he controlled several vines to shoot towards the fox-eared girl. Their speed was incredible. They were nearly too fast for the naked eye to see. The fox-eared girl had no time to react. It was just the blink of an eye. Her snow-white and smooth limbs and neck were already entwined with sturdy vines. As the vines tightened with force, her slender limbs were pulled apart, leaving her hanging in midair in the shape of a big character, completely vulnerable. He actually caught her? Linziken had a look of surprise, not expecting the fox-eared girl to be the real body, nor did he expect to restrain her so easily. The fox-eared girl was even more surprised. You can actually control vines. Linziken did not explain, fearing that the opportunity in front of him would slip away in an instant. He immediately took a step forward, rushing towards the fox-eared girl with utmost speed. He raised his fist, covered in chi blood. And with a fierce punch, he aimed for her face. Soon, a loud bang was heard. The fist, which created a sharp breaking sound through the air, landed heavily on the delicate face of the fox-eared girl, bringing a shockingly real impact. The next instant, the fox-eared girl's head was blown apart by the punch, and her entire body exploded along with it. There was no scream. No blood. What there was, were white fox furs floating down to the ground like snow. And, a withered fox tail quietly lying on the ground, motionless. At the same time, the surrounding darkness receded rapidly. Li Moyu and the others, who had been under the fox-eared girl's mental control, all gradually came to their senses and successfully separated from the illusion. However, they were all still a bit groggy, only able to stand still as they slowly recovered. What's the situation? Linziken, looking at the white fox furs that were slowly falling to the ground and then at the withered fox tail on the floor, was somewhat confused about the situation. Where's the blood? How come there's no blood at all? Did she escape by shedding her tail, like a gecko? Thinking this, Linziken couldn't help but frown. Then, with the thought, he quickly expanded his perception, covering an area of several hundred meters in an instant, meticulously searching for the fox-eared girl. But after a thorough search, he didn't find even a single fox fur. Withdrawing his extended perception, Linziken had an epiphany, learning to move objects through the air without a teacher. Under the diffusion of his spiritual power, he drew the fox tail on the ground towards him through the air. Thinking of examining the fox tail to see if he could discover anything. The moment his hand touched the fox tail, a prompt message appeared out of thin air. Do you choose to devour it? Hey? It can be devoured? Linziken was somewhat surprised. Origin land. In a room with ancient and elegant charm. A beautiful fox woman with a voluptuous figure and 8 tails behind her. She was sitting quietly on the bed with her beautiful eyes closed, completely motionless as if in meditation. Suddenly, her complexion turned pale, a trickle of blood spilled from the corner of her mouth, and she looked terribly pained. Just now, one of her tails had transformed into a clone that was smashed to pieces on earth with a single punch. The moment her clone perished, her spirit unavoidably suffered a minor injury. It caused such chaos within her body that chi blood surged up, bringing blood to her mouth. After a long while, the fox woman slowly opened her beautiful eyes, revealing a captivating gaze, and muttered to herself, with an ordinary 9th rank body, defeating a high-level 6th rank without injury, and forcefully breaking through a high-level 3rd rank illusion technique. How did Earth, a land scarce in evolutionary resources, give birth to such an extraordinary genius? This is an exceptional candidate for cultivation. I must bring him back to serve as my bedchamber slave, tether him in my room with a collar, and suck his essence every day. With this, my strength will surge forward dramatically. As she said this, her captivating eyes gleamed with excitement and her charming face flushed with exhilaration. After calming down for a moment, the fox woman took out a jade talisman from her bosom, slightly opened her red lips, and spoke into it, "Bai Ying, go to the hidden elixir pavilion and fetch a 9 revolutions resurrection pill to my room." Soon, a servant girl in white, holding a green pill, entered the room. The fox woman swallowed the pill to repair the spirit damage she had just incurred. At that moment, another servant girl in green hurried into the room, speaking excitedly, "Mistress! Great news! The glorious news! The Night King's offspring has agreed to be your bedchamber slave." The servant girl who delivered the pill was taken aback. This offspring of the Night King is a monster born as an advanced level creature. He's not even 30, and he's already a rare level creature. In the future, he's sure to evolve into an epic level creature. Under your nourishment, my mistress, he might even evolve into a legendary level creature someday. Mistress, please choose him, there's no better candidate. The Night King's offspring. The fox woman smiled, "Even if the Night King himself came to be my bedchamber slave, I wouldn't care for him. I have already found a suitable candidate on Earth. In the future, if someone recommends a candidate to you for me, reject them on my behalf. P.S. Begging for monthly and recommendation tickets." Chapter 279, 182. Huge waves surge. Yuan Dongji is defeated. On the other side of the coastal forest, Yuan Dongji's battle with the hunchbacked masked man had reached a fever pitch. The aftermath of their clashes caused the ground to break apart and rocks to shatter, trees to snap and birds to scatter. Buzz buzz buzz. Yuan Dongji controlled tens of thousands of water blades, shooting them towards the hunchbacked masked man with a momentum that blocked out the sky. With just a thought, the hunchbacked masked man commanded thick vines to form a gigantic protective barrier, blocking all the incoming water blades. Then, he immediately directed these vines to shoot towards Yuan Dongji at high speed, launching a fierce counterattack. Yuan Dongji was not intimidated in the least. She promptly lifted the 40-meter water blade in her hand and, with several consecutive strikes, cut all the incoming vines. At the same time, more water blades separated from the surging water column beneath her feet, firing like machine gun fire towards the hunchbacked masked man atop the trees, aiming directly for his head. Alas, all were blocked by the vines, failing to harm the hunchbacked masked man in the least. The hunchbacked masked man countered again. His eyes focused, and in the next second, the towering trees in the forest surged towards Yuan Dongji, forming a massive cage of trees, as if to trap her and beat her down. Yuan Dongji frowned and lifted all the water from the stream beneath her feet into the air, forming a large water membrane to fend off the continuous vine attacks. Simultaneously, she created numerous water blades on the surface of the water membrane, sharp enough to cut through iron, slicing all the incoming vines. However, there were just too many vines. No sooner were the old ones cut than new ones took their place. The offensive showed no sign of weakening. On the contrary, Yuan Dongji, in a defensive stance, was seeing her defenses steadily diminish. The vines controlled by the hunchbacked masked man had many small holes split open on them. Each time they lashed against the water membrane, they absorbed a large amount of water. Over time, the water available to Yuan Dongji was less than half of what it had been at the start. "Principal Yuan, you rely too much on water sources," said the hunchbacked masked man. As soon as the water source diminishes, your strength suffers greatly. Your weakness is too obvious, making it easy to target. While controlling the vines to relentlessly strike at the water membrane, the hunchbacked masked man lectured Yuan Dongji in a superior tone. Yuan Dongji remained silent, her eyebrows furrowed as she concentrated on withstanding the vine attacks. She knew she was at a disadvantage, pulling water from beneath the ground to the surface in order to replenish her water source and maintain her combat power. The hunchbacked masked man continued with ease, "Principal Yuan, you are aware. The power behind the divine plant cult is of paramount importance in the origin land. In the southern domain, they have vast stretches of inexhaustible spiritual plant resources, all sorts of exotic flowers and fruits at their disposal. With your talent, as long as you are willing to join the divine plant cult, you can gain access to an unending supply of exotic flowers and fruits. With ample resources, evolving into an epic level being in the future will no longer be a dream." The hunchbacked masked man extended an olive branch to Yuan Dongji with genuine intent to recruit her, saying, "So, what do you say about accepting my recommendation to join the divine plant cult?" Yuan Dongji spoke in a cold tone, "I am human, not one of those who have lost their humanity like you. I will never join a heretical sect that persecutes humanity." "Lost humanity?" The hunchbacked masked man laughed, appearing unconcerned. "On the contrary, those whom you call degenerated have not only preserved their humanity but have also magnified it. The essence of human nature is the extreme self-interest that dictates every man for himself, and the devil take the hindmost. But modern human society is bound by too many rules and restrictions. Thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do that. The true extinction of humanity lies there. Having joined the divine plant cult, I may appear to wear a mask, but in reality, I have discarded the disguise. Behind the mask, I am free to unleash the human nature that has always been suppressed deep within, to be the most authentic human, doing whatever I desire. What about you? You may not have a physical mask, but you always wear an invisible one. Every day, you suppress the very nature of being born human, which is utterly laughable." The hunchbacked masked man continually fed his philosophy to Yuan Dongji, attempting to assimilate her. As an elder in charge of personnel within the divine plant cult, he excelled at recruiting people into the cult. With his proud, persuasive tongue, he had covertly recruited many human fighters into the cult. Now, he wanted to recruit Yuan Dongji. Unfortunately, Yuan Dongji was disdainful and snorted, "Ha! You spout bewitching nonsense." Suddenly, the dragon horns on her head radiated light, drawing a massive amount of underground water to the surface and toppling all the towering trees surrounding her. "You won't shed a tear until you see the coffin." Seeing Yuan Dongji's refusal to join the cult, the hunchbacked masked man's smile faded. Afterward, with just a thought, he controlled more vines to surge towards Yuan Dongji, aiming to deplete her newly acquired water sources in the same manner. Yuan Dongji did not sit idly by, she gathered countless water arrows and shot them explosively towards the hunchbacked masked man. This exchange continued for over 10 minutes. Just as the battle escalated, all of a sudden, both rare-level fighters ceased their combat in a mutual understanding. One stood atop a surging water column. The other stood atop a 100-meter towering tree. At that moment, both unexpectedly turned their gaze in the same direction. It was the direction of Linziken. Since their appearance in this coastal forest, both fighters had been diverting part of their attention to Linziken, constantly monitoring his movement. Just now, both rare-level fighters sensed that Linziken had actually won against the fox-eared girl. Immediately, their faces were full of shock, finding it hard to believe. To be able to fight and defeat a physically stronger 6th order fighter and a spiritually powerful fox demon with the body of an ordinary 9th rank. Chapter 280, 182. Huge waves surge. Yuan Dongji is defeated, _2. What kind of monster is this? Is he really an earthling? Are you sure he's not an alien? The hunchbacked man in the mask found it incredibly unbelievable and couldn't help but mutter to himself. Yuan Dongji remained silent. At this moment, although she appeared calm on the surface, her heart was already tumultuous. The shock she felt was not much less than that of the hunchbacked masked man. She knew Lin Zikin had a formidable physique. But she did not expect his mental strength to be just as powerful. Powerful enough to defeat a fox demon with a high-level spiritual strength and skilled in using illusion techniques. This exaggerated talent, even if placed in the origin land, would be 1 in 10,000. A once-in-a-generation genius that would make all the major powers of the origin land go crazy. Principal Yuan, it's time to end this. The hunchbacked man in the mask said this, and with a thought, summoned countless vines that surged wildly towards Yuan Dongji. Yuan Dongji immediately reinforced the water membrane for defense. However, there were more vines in this attack than ever before. Under the vine's frantic absorption, the water membrane became as thin as paper and then tore apart. Without the protection of the water membrane, Yuan Dongji was instantly entangled by the vines, unable to move a muscle. In this moment of crisis, she made a resolute decision to further activate the exotic beast gene within her body. Subsequently, sharp and hard dragon scales grew all over her body in an instant, severing all the vines wrapped around her. But just as she freed herself, a massive number of vines surged over again, entwining her tightly once more. The forest was the hunchbacked masked man's home ground. Without the reinforcement from the water source, Yuan Dongji was no match for the hunchbacked masked man in the forest and was completely suppressed throughout the fight. Buzz buzz buzz. A loud buzzing sound of air being torn apart echoed. Numerous thorny giant vines shot out at high speed. With a momentum that blotted out the sky and sun, they covered Yuan Dongji, engulfing her in boundless darkness. Principal Yuan, enjoy playing with the vines. Having said that, the hunchbacked masked man quickly flashed and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already rapidly jumping on the tops of giant trees, sprinting towards the direction where Lin Zikin was. Yuan Dongji panicked at the sight. A genius of Lin Zikin's caliber must not be taken away by the divine plant cult. Shan University couldn't bear such a loss. Neither could humanity bear such a loss. She decided to go all out. With a hardened heart, Yuan Dongji sacrificed some of her essence blood to feed the exotic beast gene within her body. The next moment, the veins on her forehead bulged, her eyes were bloodshot, and the dragon horns on her head doubled in size, instantly raising her mental strength to an extremely terrifying level. Then, with a single thought, she pulled the seawater from nearly a kilometer away, instantly drawing a massive wave that blotted out the sky towards the forest at great speed. She intended to fill the lush forest beneath her feet with seawater, turning the forest's away ground into a home ground of the sea. Boom! The terrifying wave swept through the entire forest. Everything in its path, except for the 100-meter-tall giant trees, was knocked down, swallowed by the surging enormous volume of seawater. The once dense forest instantly became part of a vast ocean. With the sea's nourishment, Yuan Dongji's strength surged to unprecedented heights. Suddenly, her eyes focused, and in the next second, a 100-meter-long dragon materialized on the water's surface. Accompanied by faint dragon roars. The huge sea-water dragon pursued the hunchbacked masked man with incredible speed. In the blink of an eye, the dragon caught up with the hunchbacked masked man, knocking him down from the treetop with one swoop, crashing him into the water below. Splash! A sound of emerging from water was heard. The hunchbacked masked man, completely drenched, shot out from under the water, landing on a 100-meter-tall giant tree. As he looked at Yuan Dongji, noticing that her dragon horns had grown significantly larger, he was about to say something, but before he could make a sound, he was once again slammed into the water by the dragon. Splash! The hunchbacked masked man quickly came out of the water again. But this time, he appeared to be in much more disarray. Upon surfacing, he couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood, seemingly severely injured internally. You actually sacrificed your own essence blood, are you mad? The hunchbacked masked man wiped the fresh blood from the corner of his mouth, looking somewhat frantic and frustrated. Yuan Dongji didn't respond, continuing to fiercely control the dragon to charge at him. The hunchbacked masked man tried to dodge, but the dragon was too fast. Before he could create any distance, it caught up with him in an instant, knocking him headfirst into the water. Then, it viciously bit him underwater, trying to tear him to shreds alive. About a dozen seconds passed. Bang! 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 Many blood-colored vines burst forth, striking like lightning towards Yuan Dongji in the sky, wrapping around her like jungle pythons. Yuan Dongji immediately erected her dragon scales, trying to cut through these blood-scented vines. But they would not cut. She could only leave shallow scratches on them. Splash! The hunchbacked masked man burst out of the water, his body covered with bloody wounds. These bleeding injuries were half from being torn by the dragon controlled by Yuan Dongji and half from plant sprouts growing out of his flesh, bursting outward. The hunchbacked masked man also sacrificed his essence blood, feeding his exotic beast gene to summon the eerie blood-red vines. However, he didn't sacrifice much, just enough to barely exceed Yuan Dongji's strength. It was unrealistic to kill a rare level fighter like Yuan Dongji.